Good morning. Welcome to CATEX-TV. My name is Frank Fortunato. This is a live broadcast from Princeton, New Jersey. Today is Thursday, September 16th, 2010. It's 11:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time in the U.S. It's 4:30 p.m. in London, 12:30 in Bermuda. In Mexico City, it's 10:30 a.m. If you need to reach us during the broadcast, you can phone in toll-free at 1-866-67-CATEX. Overseas, our AOL instant mail address is CATEX-TV. There's some interesting economic news floating around. The American government announced today that this is really an amazing statistic actually, something like 42 million Americans are living below the poverty level. The actual figure went up from year on year from last year. Some economic news that we'll get to later in the broadcast. Birthdays today, the actress Lauren Bacall, from Humphrey Bogart fame, as well as her own fame, of course, is 86 years old today. Congratulations to her and happy birthday. We'll go to our main news. Well, if you're living in Bermuda, you know this already. Igor is coming in. Let's look at the chart here. Here's the pinball group, and we see Carl all the way over on the west, and the center is Igor, and then all the way over to the east is Julia. Let's look at Igor's path right now. Bermuda has received its first warning for a, quote, extremely dangerous Igor. Winds are now up to 145 miles per hour. It's a Category 4 storm. It's about 955 miles south-southeast of Bermuda. It's moving west-northwest at 7 miles per hour. They are expecting it to come ashore in Bermuda sometime on Sunday with hurricane force winds. Is going to be the strongest storm in the since 7 years ago, when Hurricane Fabian knocked Bermuda for a real loop, causing several $100 million worth of damage, $300 million to be exact. So they're preparing there. If you go to the royalgazette.com website, you'll be able to see some local stories of people purchasing canned goods, water, food, or those sorts of things. So they're battening down the hatches there. Meanwhile, let's look at Carl. Carl has done as predicted and has crossed the Yucatan Peninsula and is now out in the Gulf of Campeche. It's picking up strength as it's hitting warm water, and it's actually got winds now of approximately 100 miles per hour. It's going to hit the east coast of Mexico at some point on Saturday. It's not expected to force any oil production facility closures in this area as of just yet. Other countries such as Guatemala has been put on alert. East of Igor, way out there, is Julia. Julia weakened a little bit. It's gone from 115 down to 105 miles per hour. It's about 900 miles west-northwest of the Cape Verde Islands, and it's projected to make a turn a little bit to the east. Actually, if you take out the projected path, which we did not do, but if you go to the National Hurricane Weather site, National Hurricane Center site, you can look at the path, and it looks like it swings in a bit of a boomerang, and probably, if it retains its strength, could come back in over the British Isles. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. You never know what's going to happen with these things meandering around. Now that the temperature of the Atlantic Ocean has warmed by about 2 degrees, they will continue to maintain strength. Unemployment news in the U.S. The number of newly laid off workers dropped slightly last week. It's now down to its lowest level in 2 months. The Labor Department said this morning that new claims for jobless benefits fell by 3,000, down to 450,000. Most economists had actually been expecting an increase. So claims have now fallen by 11% in the past month. The decline indicates that layoffs are easing even as the pace of the economic growth has slowed. In a separate report, the Labor Department said wholesale prices climbed in August for the second straight month as the cost of energy rose enough to offset a decline in food costs. The stock market in New York is down about 19 points now. In Turkey, a roadside bomb has killed 10 people who were traveling on a minibus earlier today. This is the latest violence to shake Turkey's turbulent southeast, where Kurdish terrorists have been fighting for decades. Turkish troops then launched an operation to hunt out those believed to be behind the attack in an area near the border with Iran and Iraq. The Prime Minister vowed to press ahead with the fight against the Kurdistan Workers' Party, and it's unfortunately more of the same there. The quake that hit New Zealand 2 weeks ago may have been a little bit bigger than anybody thought. Our Risk Management Solutions is saying that it might be the 5th most expensive for insurers based on projections. The quake may cost insurers about $1.5 billion US. The 7.1 quake damaged as many as 6,000 buildings. It might now be among 8 earthquakes that cost the industry more than $1 billion, led by the $22 billion Northridge, California quake back in '94. Claims made to private insurers may cost $400 million to $1.4 billion, according to the details in RMS. About 66% of the insured losses will be covered by the Earthquake Commission, which is New Zealand's state-owned disaster insurer. Hannover Re, Germany's second biggest reinsurer, also agreed that the cost to insurers from the quake will be high. They put it at $4 billion US. The CEO, Ulrich Wallen, said this week in Monte Carlo that Hanover's loss from the quake will not be, quote, a 3-digit million euro figure. So he's saying it will not reach 100 million euros. The quake that occurred in Chile earlier this month may cost the industry as much as $8 billion. Word on the street is that, in fact, that number is moving up. So the other all-time hit list are the 1923 Tokyo quake at $7.4 billion, the 95 Kobe quake at $4.2 billion. Interestingly, the January quake that struck Haiti that killed almost 250,000 people doesn't make the list because most of the losses there were uninsured. Well, here's the shoe on the other foot. For a long time, Boeing always complains about Airbus receiving illegal subsidies from the participating European governments. Well, this morning the World Trade Organization ruled in a finding that Boeing received illegal subsidies from the American government. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that Boeing received the aid to the detriment of Airbus. The World Trade Organization, in a confidential report on a case that was filed by the EU, found that some funding provided to Boeing by the American Defense Department and NASA actually did constitute actionable subsidies. According to the report, those subsidies total more than $16 billion. It's unclear how much of those subsidies is going to be determined by the WTO as illegal. The findings remain confidential. It has not yet been released to the public. We'll go to a word now from our sponsors and come back with the rest of the news. In Africa, 7 people, including at least 2 French citizens of state-owned nuclear company Areva, have been kidnapped in northern Niger. A spokesman for the company said that 7 were kidnapped overnight from Wednesday to Thursday near the town of Arlit in the West African nation. 2 of those abducted were Arriva employees and French citizens. The other 5 worked for an Arriva subcontractor. The construction firm Satom, a subsidiary of the French engineering giant Vinci, said that the 5 others kidnapped were its employees. The French Foreign Ministry confirmed the kidnappings and said that the French authorities were totally mobilized to respond to the action. Arriva employees in Niger had been abducted in the past. In 2008, the company announced the release of 4 of its employees, all French nationals, who had been kidnapped by an indigenous group called the Movement for Justice, which opposes the mining of ancestral lands. France has declared itself at war with the group and has pledged further military support. Presumably this will involve a kidnap and ransom claim, which probably will end up in Lloyd's. Well, Federal Express, the American company headquartered in Memphis with operations worldwide, is usually viewed as a bit of a bellwether for economic news. The thinking, of course, is that much of the economy depends upon shipping that FedEx handles. Well, they announced this morning that they've more than doubled their fiscal first quarter profit because of the expansion of global trade. But they then said that they expect a softer than expected second quarter, and they've decided to combine its large and small freight business to lower costs. They're going to lay off 1,700 full-time jobs, close 100 facilities, and they're aiming at those FedEx trucks. They have now viewed that decision, or they have viewed the trucking business, the short-term delivery business, to be unprofitable. So we'll see what happens. In the U.S., the pipeline giant Enbridge, E-N-B-R-I-D-G-E, is going to restart a major oil pipeline carrying about 1/3 of Canada's U.S.-bound crude oil this coming Friday, tomorrow. The company says that it's won U.S. regulatory clearance about 7 days after they shut it down because of a leak. The pipeline disruption of 670,000 barrels a day had caused some fluctuation in the oil future market, but the fact that the company is going to have the leak repaired in a week as compared to the several weeks that many had feared has sort of leveled things out. Enron says we've completed the repairs. We're confident we can operate the pipeline in conformity with government rules. We're making preparations for startup on Friday. The 34-inch pipeline, which is about 9/10 of a meter, is the backbone of Canadian oil imports into the U.S. It was shut down on September 9th after it spilled about 6,000 barrels of oil near Chicago in Romeoville, Illinois. The line supplies refineries that collectively have a capacity of more than a million barrels a day. And it also connects with a spur that reaches the New York Mercantile Exchange delivery terminal at Cushing, Oklahoma. Enbridge is the same company that had line 6B that spilled in Michigan in the Kalamazoo River back in the summer on July 26th. That line has not yet been reopened. That's a 190,000 barrel per day line. In the United States, U.S. home seizures for foreclosures have reached a record for the 3rd time in 5 months. This is according to Realty Track Incorporated. Bank repossessions climbed 25% from a year earlier, all the way up to about 95,300, the most since the company began keeping records. Foreclosure filings, including default and auction notices, dropped actually 5%, down to about 339,000. So this now means that 1 out of every 381 American households have received a filing. Realty Track said we're on track for a record year for homes in foreclosure and repossessions. The foreclosures are contributing to a growing housing supply that may add as many as 12 million homes to the American market. Sales of new and existing homes fell in July to the lowest level on record. Home prices have dropped about 28% over the last 4 years, according to Case-Shiller. Well, this is interesting only for a couple of reasons. I noticed this headline: Allegheny Corporation, which has a number of holdings, some of them are in insurance and reinsurance, some of them are in coal, announced today that it has set the price for the public offering of